Cinderella. This is a fairy tale. Fairy tales start with things like once upon a time or in a far, far away place. This was one of my favorites when I was a little girl. Cinderella. Once upon a time, there lived a lovely girl named Cinderella. Her stepsisters treated her like a servant and made her wear rags. One day, the king invited everyone to a great ball, but her mean stepsisters would not let Cinderella go. Left alone on the night of the ball, Cinderella began to cry. Just then her fairy godmother appeared. "You shall go to the ball, my dear. Now run and find a pumpkin and some mice and a rat." Cinderella brought them, and the fairy godmother waved her magic wand, and they became a golden coach with horses and a coachman, and Cinderella's rags became a beautiful gown. "Now go to the ball, but remember to leave before midnight." The moment the prince saw Cinderella at the ball, he fell in love with her, and he danced every dance with her. No one, not even Cinderella's stepsister, could guess who this beautiful girl could be. Cinderella was having such a wonderful time that she forgot all about the fairy godmother's warning. When the clock began to strike midnight, she rushed out of the palace and down the front steps, dropping one of her glass slippers as she fled. The prince ran after her, but all he found was her glass slipper. The next day, the prince sent his page to every house in the kingdom to find the girl whose foot fit the glass slipper. At last he came to Cinderella's house. When the slipper was put on her foot, it fit perfectly. The prince was thrilled to have his beloved again and asked Cinderella to marry him. She invited her stepsisters to the wedding, and everyone had a wonderful time. Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after. The end. Well, that's a fairy tale, because it starts once upon a time and ends and they lived happily ever after. Well, sometimes we have stories that are fractured. That means that they take the fairy tale and they change it just a little. This one's called Bubba the Cowboy Prince, a fractured Texas tale. It's a little different than Cinderella, but maybe you'll see some things that are like it. Here are our characters in the book: Bubba, Dwayne, Milton, and the wicked stepdaddy. Once, a strapping young fella named Bubba lived on a ranch with his wicked stepdaddy and his hateful and lazy stepbrothers, Dwayne and Milton. Bubba's stepdaddy spoiled Dwayne and Milton to no end, but Bubba worked from sun up to sundown doing the chores of 3 ranch hands. Bubba never complained, though. He loved ranching. Dwayne and Milton spent their days sitting on horseback, bossing Bubba around. "Get them doggies along there, Bubba," ordered Dwayne. "Yeah, watch out for them cow patties," added Milton. "You know how Daddy hates for you to track up the house." Now, Miss Lurleen, who lived down the road a piece, was the prettiest and richest gal in the county. She owned the biggest spread west of the Blazo, and she loved ranching too, but it was lonesome work, and after a while she decided it was time for some companionship. "I aim to find me a feller, one who loves ranching as much as I do, and it wouldn't hurt if he was cute as a cow's ear either." Miss Lurleen decided to throw a ball, and she sent the invitations to all the ranchers in Texas. Soon the day of the ball arrived. Dwayne and Milton spent all day getting ready, gussied up in their finest duds. Bubba ran himself ragged, waiting on them. "Bubba, fetch my bolo tie." "Bubba, get my boots polished," said Milton. "Bubba," shouted the wicked stepdaddy, "brush them horses and wash that wagon." By the time Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy were ready to go, Bubba was exhausted. Still, as they climbed into the wagon, Bubba said, "Can't you wait for me to get ready? I want to dance with Miss Lurleen too." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy hooted and hollered. "Why, you're sorry than a steer in the stockyard," said Dwayne. "Can you imagine Miss Lurleen dancing with the likes of you?" said Milton. "Miss Lurleen wouldn't even wipe the dirt off her boots with that raggedy shirt of yours, and you smell more like cattle than the cattle do." Bubba took a look at himself. It's true. He didn't have a decent shirt to wear, and his boots were downright disgraceful. He did smell a bit rough. Milton and Dwayne were right. Miss Lurleen wouldn't dance with the likes of him. Bubba hung his head, and he felt lower than a rattlesnake in the gully. Milton and Dwayne and their wicked daddy went on off to the ball, and Bubba mounted his horse and headed for the pasture to check on the herd. The sky was getting darker than a black bull at midnight. It looked like Texas thunderstorm was just a brewing. Bubba had just arrived at the cow pasture when a bolt of lightning struck, knocking him off his horse. Bubba was stunned for a moment, but when he picked himself up, he heard a voice. "Go to the ball," said the voice. Bubba looked around. No one was there except him and the cows. Well, now Bubba figured he'd bonked the bejeebers out of his bean, 'cause that voice was coming from a cow. She chewed her cud for a moment, and then she said, "I'm your fairy god cow, and I can help you go to the ball." Bubba sat up and rubbing his head. "I'd like to go to the party, Miss God Cow, but shoot, I don't have a thing to wear." The fairy god cow swished her tail, and Bubba Rags turned into handsomest cowboy dud you ever did seen. His jeans were crisp, his boots were shiny, and his shirt was dazzling, and his Stetson was whiter than new salt lick. "Why, I'm downright purty," said Bubba. The fairy god cow swished her tail again, and a nearby steer turned into the most beautiful white stallion Bubba had ever seen. "Now you go off to the ball, Bubba, and have a good time dancing with Miss Lurleen, but you best be home by midnight, 'cause that's when the magic runs out." "Yahoo!" said Bubba, and he jumped on the white horse and galloped on off to the ball. Well, when Bubba arrived, the hoedown was in full swing, but every time Miss Lurleen finished the dance, she'd yawn. "Oh, there's another $10 Stetson on a 5-cent head," she complained. "Where are all the real cowboys?" By the time it was Bubba's turn to dance, Miss Lurleen was almost midnight. Soon as she saw Bubba, Miss Lurleen's eyes lit up. "Why, you're cute as a cow's ear." Bubba blushed, then took Miss Lurleen in his arm, and they started dancing. Dwayne and Milton turned to purple in jealousy. "Who is that dude?" said Wayne. "I don't recall seeing him before. He looks a mite familiar." "Do something," said the wicked stepdaddy. "That cowboy's winning Miss Lurleen's heart." As it turned out, Milton and Dwayne didn't have to do a thing, because Bubba and Miss Lurleen were in the middle of a do-si-doing when the clock started midnight. Suddenly, Bubba's fine duds turned into dirty rags he usually wore around the ranch. He looked sorry, and he smelled worse. "Ooh, what an awful smell," said Milton. "Why, it's Bubba," said Dwayne. Bubba turned 14 shades of red and apologized to Miss Lurleen and ran out the room. "Wait!" she yelled, chasing after him. But Bubba didn't wait. He jumped on his cow and lumbered off into the night. In the ruckus, he lost one of his dirty cowboy boots. Miss Lurleen clasped it in her arms. "This is the boot of a real cowboy, and the man I'm going to marry. I aim to find him." Miss Lurleen went back inside and thought she would ask everyone at the ball. Nobody knew who this mysterious cowboy was. Nobody except for Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy. That's it. But they weren't talking. Well, the next day, Miss Lurleen went from ranch to ranch looking for the cowboy who owned that boot. And when she came to Dwayne and Milton's ranch, the brothers both tried the boot on, but it didn't fit. Miss Lurleen had just climbed up on her horse to leave when Bubba rode up. He was dirty, sweaty, smelly from working the cows, and he was only wearing one boot. Miss Lurleen jumped off the horse and ran over to Bubba. "Try this on," she cried. Bubba took his dirty old boot and pulled it on. "Much obliged, ma'am," he said, blushing, and it fit perfectly. "My prince is a cowboy boot. I'd recognize that smell anywhere. Marry me, cowboy. Help me work my ranch," said Miss Lurleen. Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy threw chicken fits. But Bubba just smiled. He and Miss Lurleen rode off into the sunset. and they lived happily ever after, roping, cow poking, and getting those doggies along. Well, they're a little bit different, but they both lost a shoe, and they both lived happily ever after.